Alright, so this is a video on anyone that has a P2073 fault code on their Mercedes S-Class with the V12 engine. And this issue came up for me right after replacing the radiator. And so you got to drain the coolant, disconnect some hoses, and remove this fan. And I had to do it a couple times. And anyway, what ended up happening is some coolant spilled from the top and right on to this connector right here. So the way this sits in the engine bay is kind of like this. You can see that connector usually sits right there. And on the actual car, there's this big coolant hose that you disconnect from here. And so the connector is right below it. And you can see the coolant catch can that I have under there. Anyway, what ended up happening is, it sounds like some coolant got into this module. I don't know if you can hear it shaking around in there, but that seems pretty obvious to me that some coolant got in here and must have fried a component or caused a circuit to blow, because the code that's coming up is for open circuit on the fan. That's what the P2073 is. So from here, it sounds like the only option is to buy a remanufactured unit, and those are pretty pricey. So I'm gonna try and just open this up and see what I can do myself, because all that holds it on is really these three T20 screws down here. And so you just zip those off and this module comes out. So I'm gonna disconnect these wires, or maybe just apply some heat and open it up, see if I can identify the failed component and reseal it. Just kind of, you know, do a rebuild job on my own, because if I can't, you know, I'm just gonna end up buying a new unit, anyways. So, you know, save myself $1,000 and try and remanufacture this thing myself, because there's definitely some coolant in there. Yeah, so that's probably what's causing all the failures with this code. And yeah, we'll see what happens when I open this up. All right, so I got the black cover off. I used some heat and just a lot of force. Here's what it looks like on the inside. I think this is where the fault is. There's just kind of this bluish gunk on the circuit board. This is the only board that is not kind of encapsulated in this kind of goo, kind of like a jelly that they've covered everything in on the bottom. So you can see this kind of jelly, which is not coolant. So this is not a liquid. It's kind of like a weatherproofing, I guess. It goes all around the board, except for on the side here. And this thing was pretty full of coolant. So I think that's where our problem is going to be. There might be some other areas, but yeah, that seems to be the issue there. So I don't know if this is repairable, considering the amount of, you know, weatherproofing and different kinds of things on there, but I don't know. I'm going to try and just kind of brush that off and see what's underneath. Maybe there are resistors, I'm not sure. Some kind of surface mount components. That seems to be the only problem, at least on a visual inspection, because, you know, all of that is covered in jelly. So probably coolant did not get down in there on any of these. I guess they're power supplies or voltage regulators or whatever they are. We'll try and clean it off and see what happens. We might just have to end up buying a new one though, so stay tuned. All right, so upon closer inspection, this resistor second from the edge, marked 103, so that's supposed to be a 10 kilo ohm resistor, and when I test it out, it comes out like 1 mega ohm, 2 mega ohms, and the pad on the right, it's kind of hard to see, but that's kind of disintegrated. I don't know if I can zoom in on this somehow. Oh, wrong way. But I can see the copper exposed on there. The other ones seem to be okay. That one, that's also marked 103, it's just upside down. That one tests okay at 10 kilo ohms, but I'm wondering whether this is all that's wrong, is just this one resistor is blown open, and maybe it's important for this control circuit. Sorry, I'm messing around with the camera here. Yeah, the board doesn't look, whoops, man, that doesn't help, but the board doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look too good either. I mean, this, I don't know what that is, capacitor, kind of rusty on my electrical components, but it looks like I don't know, a double fuse or something like that. That doesn't seem too good. It had some kind of yellow boogers around it, which I cleaned off. Looking at that middle pad, it's not soldered on the top, but it is on the bottom, so that should be okay. Maybe I can look up that part number and see what that actually is and test it out. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be other damage to the board. There was just those green crusties and kind of blue goo in the corner here, and so that middle resistor in that group of 3 right there is the only one that seems to be broken. So I'm gonna try and bring my soldering iron out here and maybe do a repair with you know, a standard through hole resistor. Maybe I can get it onto those leads, because I don't have any of these surface mount resistors, and it's going to be a while before I can order them in, and also expensive for like a, I don't know, a 5-cent unit. I'm gonna have to pay like $15 to ship it in. So I'll see what I have in the good old electrical parts drawer and go from there. So yeah, fingers crossed this is all that it is, but if only everything were that easy. So I don't have too high of hopes, but stay tuned and we'll see how this works. So that's just my multimeter beeping. Yeah, stay tuned. All right, so just a bit of an update on the attempted repair. You can see I have a very professionally installed 10 kilo ohm resistor, but unfortunately the module still doesn't work. And short of, you know, taking the whole thing out and doing some in-depth diagnostics, I just don't have the time, don't figure it's worth it, because these units are actually interchangeable for many different model years, which use this same 850 watt blower module. So you can see this 850 watt part number 374456. So this is off of an 07, and this one is off of a 2012 CLS 550, and it's actually the same unit, same internals, same wiring, same motor, same everything. Just the fan shroud and the plastic is different. So I picked this up from a junkyard in the next town over. You can see it's 374456. At some point it seems the manufacturing moved over to Bros, whereas they used to be made by Temic. But you can see that the motor just has all these like 10 different holes, so that OEMs can use, you know, different fans and different assemblies, but the internals and the electronics and the connections remain unchanged. So what I'm going to do is just dismount this one, take the fan off, since the plastic mounting is different between these two models. So this is off of the 07 S65 AMG that I'm working on. But so this module from a 2012 CLS 550 should fit just fine. So I'm going to get to work on swapping these over and give an update when I'm done. All right, so just confirming we've got a side-by-side of the two units now that I've done a bit of disassembly. So you can see the new one on the left is the Brosa, and the old one is on the right, which is a Temic, both 850 watts, 374456, 374456. So I've opened this one up. I'm obviously not going to do the same to this one. I'm sure it works just fine. Here you can see the motor units, exactly the same. Just a word of caution when you are taking the fan blade off of the motor. It likes to stick on, at least on the old one that I had. It had a bit harder of a time coming off, because there was just a bunch of sand and debris that was caught in between the plastic and the motor. But it is just these 4 screws. You don't need to use a puller or anything. I was a little misled by this center looking like a little hub piece or an inner race, but it is just these 4 T20 screws which hold it on. and you can pull it off by hand. And if it doesn't want to come, then just give it a bit of a wiggle and a bit of persuasion. Be gentle. It is old plastic, so you don't want to break it. Luckily everything came out in one piece, and so now I'm gonna swap this new unit in, put the old fan on, because I noticed this one has more fan blades than the one off of the 2012. So I figure I'll just leave the old fan on. Maybe there's a reason for the extra fins, maybe not, but just to be safe, better safe than sorry, right? So just gonna put this back together, get it in the car, and should be all set.